Siobhan Fallon Hogan is an actress, comedian, writer, and producer known for her roles in Forrest Gump, Men in Black, Saturday Night Live, Seinfeld, and much more. She was on campus for a film screening of her newest movie, Shelter in Solitude, and to guest lecture for our theater department. We asked her to visit the studio to discuss her career, projects, and offer advice to young filmmakers hoping to enter the industry. Benedictine College is transforming culture in America, one conversation at a time. From our studios in Atchison, Kansas, these are the Benedictine Dialogues. All right, Siobhan, welcome to the Benedictine Dialogues.
Thanks for having me. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. Wonderful to have you here on campus, and great to see you again.
It's great to see you too. I haven't seen you in 2 years.
Yeah, it was awesome. We connected at Napa and just had a great conversation.
Yes.
Really looking forward to seeing you here on campus, and thank you for coming and everything you're doing while you're here.
I have to tell you, I am beyond impressed.
Awesome.
I mean, I went to Mass early this morning, and the congregation, it was full and just beautiful. And then the campus is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's quite amazing.
Yeah. And President Minnis, of course.
Yes.
What he's done with it. I mean, I was asking, like, did all of this, everything's so beautiful. And Joanne Huey was telling me, like, this is since so many buildings that since he arrived, and it's really impressive.
Yes. Yeah, it's been 20 years of just kind of unprecedented growth, to be honest. Yeah.
And all the tiniest details. Like, it's so clean, and the flowers.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
I'm thinking I could kick myself because of my kids. I'm like, why didn't I send them here? I didn't know about it.
There you go.
Stupid.
So I wanted to talk to you about kind of your journey in the industry.
Sure.
You know, have you always been interested in acting, or how did that come about?
So I'm one of five.
Okay.
And my dad was really, really funny lawyer. My mom was really quiet, funny. My father was the louder of the two. And so I'm Irish.
Sure.
And we really valued storytelling. Like, it's at the dinner table, be like, my youngest sister would be like, Mom, when am I have a chance to talk? So anyway, that was really valued, much more so, I would say, not that academics were not valued, it's that I was a terrible, terrible student. So I'd say, Dad, like I remember I was in college at Lemoyne College, Jesuit school in Syracuse, and I got a D in astronomy. I was like, Dad, I got a D. He's like, Siobhan, see this piece of pie? It's like, look, 65% of it's left. That's a lot of pie. Don't worry about it. You're good in the plays. So I always was in the plays in grammar school and high school, but my parents, you never think to go to theater school. It was sort of more practical. So I went to Lemoyne College, and I think I had about every major there was. I got into economics. I got to about supply and demand. I was like, then I was like the history major, and then it was English, and then I was going to be a teacher. So my senior year of college, you're supposed to do your student teaching. And I said to my father and mother, I said, look, I want to be an actress. So my father, as I said, was one of 11. He had a cousin, Beth Fallon. She was a journalist for the Daily News. She was an only child. She used to come to Syracuse every summer because they didn't want her to not to know how to get along with other kids. Meanwhile, she'd sit inside reading the whole time while they ran around like hoodlums. And she knew Jackie Gleason's daughter. So they said, Aunt Beth knows Jackie Gleason's daughter. Go to New York, meet her. She'll advise you. So my senior year in college, I went down and saw her in New York City, and she said, you should go to Catholic University and get your MFA in acting. Go to graduate school. And at that time, it was a fabulous department. John Voight went there, Susan Sarandon, it was an unbelievable program. So I auditioned, and I got in, and I went for 2 years down to Catholic U. Then I went to New York City, and I was, at the bottom of the barrel. I tried to be a waitress, but I was terrible at it. I'd come back with my food, and I'd be like, okay, none of these customers look familiar. I'm a terrible waitress. So I left that, and my mother said, Siobhan, you could answer phones. So I became a receptionist in a law firm, and there was a newspaper then called Backstage, now it's online, and I would go and audition. And I did summer stock theater for like a couple years, but really I got my equity card, my union card, doing children's theater. I was a bear.
Nice.
And teaching about the 4 basic food groups. I cheated and I wrote them out in Marin. I was like, there are 4 basic food groups. Because Reagan at the time gave grants if you taught about health.
Okay.
So anyway, but it was getting desperate. So I said, I got to get out of here. My father's like, why don't you come back up to Syracuse? Why don't you do start dinner theater and go to law school. I was like, I can't go to law school. My father's a lawyer. My sister's a lawyer. I'm like, not the type. And this guy, this girl in the law firm that I'd gotten a job, because I'd get all my friends' jobs. All these actors would be receptionist, filing clerk, messenger, and we all worked together. And I always say what goes around comes around. And a lot of prayer. This girl said to me, Siobhan, there's an audition for this improv group. You should do it. So I was like, okay. I auditioned and I got it. And my life went from black and white to Technicolor. I got $10 a night every Saturday night, but there would be lines around the block. And it was very popular. And so the guy who ran it said to me, why don't you write a one-person show? I'd never written.
Sure.
But I was like, no one's casting me. So, okay. So I did a show. I wrote a show with like all the characters I wanted to play if someone would cast me, which they wouldn't. So I was like a Midwestern stand-up comic who wasn't funny. A little girl who sold paintings door to door. It was called Batgirl, because in my hometown, there was always a story of a little girl who got a bat stuck in her hair, so she wore a sweatshirt on her head. So that was the character. Then I played like a cheerleader, a tour guide, and I took my pennies and rented out a theater that's an off-Broadway theater, but not the theater. But it was what my husband, who's a New Yorker, said. It was a bait and switch.
Okay.
So I rented out the lobby when the theater was dark on Sunday nights and Mondays. And I went to the, New York City, the half-price ticket line. My friend was a good artist, made a flyer and handed out $9.99 off-Broadway show. And reviewers came. So it got good reviews. Then I took it to California and I did the same thing in San Diego. And Saturday Night Live came, and Seinfeld, I was doing a different play when they came. So I got on Seinfeld, I got on SNL, and then things started to kind of come together.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
But listen, there was times, it took a couple of years.
Sure.
There was one time I was telling, like, I was lying on my back in my apartment. That was the smallest thing you've ever seen, on a twin bed. My feet touched my roommate's head. My clothes hung on my face. And I was like, this is so depressing. What is going to happen to me? And I was just lying there and I felt a tickle on the end of my nose. And I was like, and there was a cockroach on the end of my nose.
Oh gosh.
And I was like, oh, my life is in the gutter. And, I wanted to get married and have children. I was like, what am I doing? My father used to say, do what you're meant to be doing, what God gave you gifts for, and the rest will come. So yeah, so I got on SNL, met my husband, got married, got engaged, and 4 months later got married.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. It was miracles.
Yeah.
And praying all the way.
Sure. Yeah. Speaking of prayer, I mean, tell me a little bit about how your faith has influenced your career, how it's influenced, roles you've chosen or maybe roles you've turned down. What's that been like?
So I always say, God first, and which was, it did not help my bank account, because there was so many times you'd get offered roles that were, or read scripts that were just filth, and now I'm older. So, at the time you'd be, early on in my career, you'd think, oh, my agent's going to dump me. But I would, a lot of times just say, no, it's not my cup of tea. But you think God has a really good sense of humor, because I was on a TV show that I was like, finally, this is great. I'm in a weekly paycheck. This is awesome. Sure enough, I get a script, I'm like 4 episodes in, whatever my character's name was, she starts having an affair, which begins at Mass. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like at Mass? And so I said, listen, number one, I'm not having an affair. Number two, and I was in my trailer and the producer knocks at the door, which is like if you're in 8th grade and the principal of the school knocks at the door, I'm like, can I talk to you? And he's like, don't you tell your kids that you're playing a role? And I was like, yes, I do. Well, can't you tell them? I go, no, I can't. So just my faith and knowing that, like, I was never impressed by people, because I know that we're all God's children, and it doesn't matter. There's so many more professions or so many more people that are such important lives that aren't in the limelight. And it's just this false belief that you're somebody because you're in movies. So, and my parents were awesome. And they would call me, Siobhan, what movie are you in again? Because people are asking. I'm like, Forrest Gump. Oh yeah. What's that one about? so there was no room to have an ego.
Sure.
And then with my kids, I didn't want my kids to think to put value on something like that. You know what I mean? So my faith has played a huge role. And believe me, I'm not perfect in any way. And but I try to have that be the rudder of my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a very rare quality as well.
Yeah. And then the movies I've written, Rushed and Shelter and Solitude, when my youngest daughter was a junior in high school and she was going off to college. And I thought, what am I going to do when she leaves? Because being an actress is awesome with kids because I would bring them with me. Like my kids have been to Australia and Denmark. And
really?
I was like my agent would be like, okay, Siobhan, you got the job. And I was like, uh-huh. Have we told them that there's an entire entourage coming of children? But when my youngest was going off to college, I thought, what will I do? So then that's when I said, I'll try my hand at writing and commit to spreading the word through film.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me a little about, one of the things I really admire about your work is no matter what your role is, you have this like really uncanny ability to steal a screen. You have these moments that like, that's what stands out to me in this movie. That's what stands out to me in this movie. Is that just something natural for you or is that something that was learned? Or
First of all, it's so nice. I had an agent once said, Siobhan, is there any way you could try not to make a big splash and just sort of blend in? And my son was 10 years old. We were at a premiere party and he's like, Mom, you gotta get rid of that guy. I literally got rid of him because my son said that. I was like, you're right. That's weird. No. Okay. So I was taught that, when I went to Catholic University, we had great teachers, professors, and said, you have a life in your hands. So, and Shakespeare said what did he say? There are no small roles, only small actors. And so, each role is equally as important. So, listen, being a character actor, sometimes you're like, I got about 2 minutes here. I got to make something of this.
Yeah.
I remember when I was on Seinfeld, I was cast as Elaine's roommate and I got a call from Larry David and he said, hi, Sharon. I thought he was going to fire me. He's like, listen, I got kind of bad news. I was like, oh no, I'm going to get fired. And he's like, okay, I don't know if you know this, but first of all, this is the worst Larry David impression ever. So I should really stop right now. But, we got to fit this into 22 minutes and we got to trim your part down. So I was like, okay, no problem. At least I'm still in it. But then I was like, there are things called props. So I was like, yeah, I'll take a water bottle, please. So it's like, Elaine. And I took like the longest sip in the history of TV. I was like, I did this improv class where, I was like, I'm going to get myself in there no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing. How much have you seen? Hollywood's changed so much. Even the industry itself has changed a lot. It's moving much more into the streaming world and other things like that. How have you seen the industry change over time? It has
changed so much. It's insane. Like I was in the glory days. Like Men in Black, Forrest Gump, those budgets were massive.
Yes.
Like they'd be
the
like,
90s were crazy.
All right, so the limo will get you. And then, be like 10 o'clock in the morning. Like, would you like some sushi? It was like unlimited funds. And the parties were the premiere parties were unbelievable. And I feel like the stories were really, really great then too. There's so many movies that I just like, with Robert Redford just dying. That was before me, but Sting and Butch Cassidy, the stories were unbelievable. And then I was at the Cannes Film Festival in, I think it was 2018 for a Lars von Trier movie, The House that Jack Built. And that's when Cannes was like, we are not allowing a movie in if it's already aired on Netflix. It's just not happening. Well, then all the rules started changing. Then streaming became huge. Then COVID hit. Then there was a strike. So there was a period. And then I wrote the movie Rushed, came out in 2021, and then came out just around COVID, after COVID. People were afraid to even go to the theaters. I thought it was over. I thought, this is going to be like when vaudeville went to talkies. I was like, it's over. It was a nice run. I guess I'll do a play. So then, but I feel like it's really swinging back. And I feel like for Catholics and for people that were worried that it was, not worried that it was getting too raunchy, it was bottom of the barrel. It was like, what is this? It's something. I would get scripts. I was like, I can't even repeat this. It is so sick. Anyway, but I really feel like there's a huge revival. I mean, we met out in Napa. There's a real core group of Catholics that are doing movies that are incredible. Like, I'm going to be going down to Guatemala to be in this movie that Coronation Media is doing about Stanley Rother.
Oh, nice.
And I'm playing a Methodist volunteer missionary, woman who's single. And I mean, I'm thrilled about it. I'm going over to Italy to do another movie it's a Lionsgate film with Aaron Eckhart, and it's this fabulous, they didn't present it to me like it's Catholic. It's a big studio movie, and it's clean. It's a great story. It's like, this is shocking, because I literally got to the point where I'd be like, get a script, and inevitably by like page 5, you'd be like, well, don't have to audition for that. That's the end of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think audiences are just really hungry for good story. It doesn't matter.
Definitely.
It doesn't matter who's making it. It doesn't matter where, if it's Catholic inspired or not. It's
right.
like, I just want good movies.
It's the human condition
exactly
to want to be told a story.
Yes.
I remember actually talking about when I first wrote the first movie, Rushed. I was at a friend's birthday, and this woman said, Siobhan, we're Irish. We're storytellers. Let's write a movie. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, so I think we're all really hungry, and, look, like Sound of Freedom. Mm-hmm. It was a great movie, great story, across the board. You didn't have to be Catholic, you didn't have to be, everybody loved that movie. It's a great story. And it proved that you don't have to be a big studio movie. And that's the great thing for the young people now. And that's why I love going to college campuses and talking, is because you don't have to have a studio behind you or anybody behind you. Anybody can take their phone, write a good story, film it, edit it together, and send it to film festivals. I mean, there's so many more opportunities for young people or first-time filmmakers.
Yeah, in fact, actually here we have our theater department that we're excited that you'll be presenting to them. But we also have it's a Center for Catholic Media, and we have a fellowship opportunity through it, where we give them opportunities to come learn how to film things. They watch these podcasts. They come with us, or we last year, and we're doing it again this semester, we actually took 5 minutes out of a film and then recreated it. So we went into a classroom and had actors and found location scouted, did the whole thing, and then showed them post editing, the basics.
It's brilliant.
So I'd love to hear from you. Like, what advice would you give to students who are interested in the industry, and how do they navigate, that world?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, to have a school like this with the opportunities, the equipment, people with knowledge like you is huge. So I think it's important for kids to investigate schools like this. You know what I mean? And then what's great with this is you get the whole McGill, as my husband would say. You have a beautiful, an active faith life here, the church, the sports. It's because sometimes schools have one thing but not the other, but to really have something that's really teaching, like I remember my mother said when one of my kids was going off to one of the ridiculous universities, and she said, what are they taking? And I told her what they were taking. She said, what a bunch of useless information. But anyway, to get the core, philosophy, religion, theology, so you're building yourself as a human being. You're learning the importance of volunteering, the importance of developing a spiritual life at the same time that you are learning how to work a camera or act. It's so important to have a balanced, well-rounded life. And then I would say, read the classics. Read every play that ever won a Tony from the time in the beginning.
Yeah,
so you're well-armed. Know who Chekhov is, know who Ibsen is. If at the very least, so you're not standing in a theater community and be like, who? You know what I mean? You want to read everything, every important playwright, so that you're armed. You know what I mean? You're well armed, and you got an arsenal of information. And then just keep doing it. Don't allow. Say if you're a student, you don't get cast in something. It's heartbreaking. Your name's not on the list. It's the exact same thing as life. It's the exact same thing. I was like, I didn't get it. Like my kid, I have 2 of my kids, 2 of the 3 are actors. They're like, Mom, I didn't get it. I go, you know how many parts I haven't gotten? I didn't get something last week. You have to have that attitude, like God has a plan, which he does. Not even an attitude, belief. God has a plan, this is building character. And when I do get that job, it's going to be so much better because I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I love too that you're also a storyteller as well as an actor, because I think that part of training, I think that makes you a better actor is telling the stories, because you understand the moments along a story that really capture someone's attention. So I would imagine that if you're on stage or if you're in front of the camera, like this is a vital moment.
Exactly.
in the arc here.
And you have an obligation to the playwright. Like it's like you have a life in your hands. It's like they're the mother and you have the right to be a responsible child. Like they wrote it, so you want to make sure you honor the playwright. And also, what else was I going to say about that too? Oh, another great thing is this. So when I wrote the movies, and then we produced them. So what you're giving your kids here too which is great, is that so having these people filming, that you understand all the elements that go into it. So you can't think, well, just because I'm the star of the play, that I'm the big maha here. You know what I mean? Every person is important in the cog in the wheel. You know what I mean? So I think it's really important to have a theater background before film, because I run my sets like a play. Like there's no hierarchy. There's no above the line and below the line. Oh, you're the director, you're the so-and-so, so you get to go first to eat lunch. Sure. No, we're all equally, like the prop girl or the guy who's, cleaning out the trailers we're all, this wouldn't work without all of us. So that's really important, and to keep the ego out of it.
Yes. So now I'd love to just kind of ask you some of your personal favorites. So who are some of your personal, the actors or actresses that inspired you whenever you're kind of coming in, or ones that maybe still inspire you today? And then maybe some favorite films.
Yeah.
Too.
So let's see. I always loved Katharine Hepburn. She was and Diane Wiest. Those are my favorite actresses and who I really looked up to when I was young. And weirdly, then I lived in New York City for a long time, and I had my three kids in New York and moved out. My oldest daughter was 8, and Diane Wiest was a reader at my church.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
wow. So small world.
And then there's, it's so it's hard for someone young. Life goes in a flash. I mean, I would say if I got hit on the head right now and I had amnesia, they'd be like, "How old are you?" I'd be like, "I don't know, 28." But so. It's so important to treat people the way you want to be treated, because you're going to run into them again. It's not that big of a business. So when I was on Saturday Night Live, Steve Martin was on, and he was just a class act. So I just did Only Murders in the Building.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
it's like,
it's
like you can keep running into people. I've worked with Matt Dillon 3 times. So it's just, so you better be a good person and respectful, because you're going to keep running into people. And same with the crew. And who are other people? Well, I was telling this story. I did the movie New in Town with Harry Connick Jr. and Renee Zellweger. Harry Connick Jr. is just a great, great guy. And after that, shortly after, Hurricane Sandy hit, and I live in New Jersey now, and but I had lived in Breezy Point, New York, which is it's all Irish and Italian, called the Irish Riviera.
Okay.
When I say Italian, there's very few, but there's 2 lanes, one called Lasagna Lane. I don't know what the other one is. But anyway, so it was cops and firemen. They were hit really hard in 9/11, and they got hit really hard again. Sandy, 200 houses burned. So I called up Harry, because Harry is from New Orleans. And then when Katrina hit, he was devastated. New Orleans was devastated. And I said, listen, would you maybe sign some posters or maybe some CD, DVD, whatever they call CDs. What is that for music? CD or DVD?
CDs, yeah.
CD. I'm like, hey, where am I? So anyway, he said, no, Siobhan, I'll do you one better. I'll come and do a concert.
Oh, wow.
So that's a great person that's in this industry who has not lost sight of, being completely other directed. So, I worked in Denmark with Lauren Bacall. So she was, iconic. But you realize that, I was in my late 40s then. She was 82. We became friends. She said, we were going on the set. There was this ramp to go up to the set. 2 days before it was going to end. She said, Siobhan, do you have anything lined up after this? I said, no. Do you? No. She said, do you think you and I will ever work again? Meaning you could be 82 and you're still worried as an actor, actress. You know what I mean? You're like, is this going to work? And then there's people like, I love the director Andy Davis who directed Holes, just class act. We've stayed in touch. So there's just certain people. My friend John Hoffman that I did Summer Stock Theater with, he now is the producer of Only Murders in the Building. So it's just all these people that, you just admire. And my son actually just got a job on Saturday Night Live. I mean, how crazy is that? Yeah. It's just weird. But like it's a small business and, you want to make good choices. I always tell people, if you can, but sometimes money becomes a factor, but if you can live your life backwards, almost like to be really proud of your career and be tough enough to be choosy, that's kind of important.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. I mean, that's got to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, when your bank account's empty and you're like, okay, we're not going to do that. And I pray that God will reward me and that I'll get something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what about a few favorite of your films? Like are there any of yours in particular, but then also just favorite films that you go back to over and over as kind of inspiration or whatever it might be?
So, in my own career, I have favorites. Of course, because I wrote Shelter and Solitude and Rushed, I have...
That's your baby.
And my kids are in it. My husband helped produce. But I also did 3 movies with Lars von Trier in Denmark. And and he was the first person to give me a break as far as not being pegged in comedy. So I was cast in Dancer in the Dark as the prison guard, and that was, won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. So, and I was pegged at that point. It was like only going to be comedy, comedy, comedy. But because he was Danish, he didn't really realize that. So I always have a great place in my heart for him. And then other films, and of course, to be in classics like Men in Black and Forrest Gump, that's unbelievable. But I love The Sound of Music. Love it. I love the small independent films like Peanut Butter Falcon.
Okay, love that movie.
So there's movies like that are not, and then I love John Cassavetes movies.
Okay.
I love Woman Under the Influence. I love Gloria so much because, he was kind of the first really great independent. He didn't like Hollywood at all. He's like, I'm doing this myself, rogue, and just let the camera run. I love Peter Falk, and I think it's really important for kids to see those movies. And Jenna Rollins, as his wife, was beyond brilliant. Like in Gloria and in, I was in Woman on the Influence. And like with my kids, I'd always go, they're like, Mom, can you please spend the night someplace else? Like she'd always do that. She was genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Diane Keaton's genius. There's those actresses just so every detail, is really specific.
Yeah. Well, one question that we ask all of our guests, and it's kind of a big question, so if you need to take some time to think about it. Our mission here at Benedictine College is to transform culture in America.
Yes.
And we see that in the business world, we see that in entertainment, we see it just in homes, with good moms and dads. How would you say this is how we can help transform culture in America?
I mean, I think that my daughter's a horseback rider. You take it back to the base, take it back to the trot, We were born in the image and likeness of God, so we have a responsibility to create and bring quality films that represent us as great human beings. So as artists, we have a responsibility to live that way, live by example, and then also create work that will spread the word. Now, my 2 films, how they always used to talk about like Disney and that like subliminal, like they would put, even when I was growing up, they put popcorn in, they put a couple frames, you'd go to get some popcorn. My films are not considered faith-based, I wouldn't think, because it's not obvious, but it's, like Shelter and Solitude is about a woman with a guy on death row and she's trying to convert him, and more Mary Magdalene-esque. So kind of, and that's almost, I think, a strong way to go about it, because if you do a faith-based movie, you're only going to get the faith-based audience. But if you're going to do a movie that has like Catholic themed and people are almost like tricked when they get in the seat, I'm like, what was that? So I think we have a huge responsibility, especially because, it's like the Who's down in Whoville. We're like, we're here and we're strong, so we have to unite. And that's what's great about Napa, I feel like, where you meet other filmmakers that have the same mission and we have to support each other, you know? So, and it's great to teach the kids here that, because people don't do that enough. It's such a selfish trend that we've gotten into. But like I said, I do think there's hope, and I do feel like it's opening up, and more people feel that there's that responsibility, and to represent young women and young men in a classy way that people in the audience are going to see and aspire to.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's one of those things too, of knowing a few other people in the industry as well, of who are devout Catholics that really understand story. That they don't have to drift into the risque. They don't have to drift into the overly violent. There can be violence. There can be some aspects of love or lust that are involved.
Right.
But that can ultimately undermine your story if you go too far, right?
Yes.
Like the human condition is willing to take on these aspects of what it means, but oftentimes Hollywood just finds its way into like, let's just go to the extremes.
The extreme. Now, I will say, like, okay, when I showed Shelter in Solitude, which is going to be shown here, my film up at the University of Mary, I was sitting next to Monsignor Shea, and I was like, I think there's a few swear words in here. I'm thinking, shoot. In my head, I was like, should they not have been in there? And ultimately, I will say now, I probably, you know, I'm writing about a warden. I'm writing about people that are on death row. So after the lights came up, I was like, Monsignor, I'm so sorry. I go, and he said, yeah, but you kind of needed that to show the real character. So we can't be afraid, I don't think, like, of being so squeaky clean. I mean, you want to be clean, you want to be respectful, but you have to show life. But then again, I go back on that, though. I probably could have gotten rid of, you know, I could have said things a little differently if I had to do it. So, but even, you know, my age, live and you learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Anytime I hear someone critique something that maybe it's a little bit, of course, there are the extremes, but if you ever read scripture, there's a lot of violence and death and bad words and people cheating on each other and doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's life. It's
like
life.
that's what it's been like since the beginning. So we're just kind of displaying it and showing that in the end there might be some redemption.
And you can change.
Involved,
exactly.
And that you can change.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I say to my kids, you know, you look, my daughter's in acting school in New York City. I'm like, you're going in, you're going to be, you know, it's not going to be easy. You got to be tough to say no, but you got to make choices based on the way you're raised and what's important. And we all know what's important is the final answer is God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. Very, very much looking forward to the film screening tomorrow. And
what a place. I mean,
you.
I said to President Minnis, I said, I got to go back in New Jersey. There's a couple Catholic schools, and to spread the word, because this is really an unusual place. And you guys are really blessed.
We're very blessed to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for everything you do. And keep
You're
trucking.
so welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Right, absolutely. We hope you enjoyed the Benedictine Dialogues, a production of Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas. To catch all the latest and support our growing platform, visit media.benedictine.edu. And be sure to recommend this show to your friends and family. Help us to transform culture in America, one conversation at a time.